there's all these kind of big priorities that everybody wants to do things really quick without working hard. People want the snake oil, as we call it, like the quick fix for, everything. Instead of understanding what you have to get to and working towards it, they want to take a pill for it or something, And it's not. That's not people's per se, but it's like the energies of the media. You're trying to sell you something that'll get you some kind of a shortcut all the time, and trying to get you to buy things and consume. Anybody ever see that movie called They Live?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that movie? This I'm trying to think who the director was. It's one of those brilliant directors. The movie is about some aliens that invade the Earth and essentially program the whole environment to make people consume and obey. And they create this beam that blocks the actual messages that are in every magazine and every billboard. Obey, marry and reproduce, consume, behave, all these things all over, all the magazines, all the TV shows, everything shows these subliminal messages to kind of keep you from, to get you to consume stuff and just be kind of passive as a human.
Well, it's America's 21st century, no?
What's that?
It's America right now, no?
This is my point, right? My point is that the media is kind of like They Live. There's not the media per se, but the environment. There's too much of that. It's not entirely that. It's not like we have aliens, although maybe we do, actually. Because those people didn't know they had aliens until these couple characters, this underground, there's always an underground group somewhere, and they got these special sunglasses and it blocked the beam and they could see all the subliminal messages clear as day. And they were like, oh my God. And all the leadership were all aliens. So the beam also blocked because the aliens themselves looked like humans. And without the sunglasses, they looked like humans. You put the sunglasses on, you can see their alien faces, right? So all the leaders, all the CEOs, all the newscasters, they were all aliens. And so, everybody who's in charge of everything, all the pundits, everything, our artists and everybody else, they were all normal people. They were all looked regular. You put sunglasses on, it still looked like people. But the leadership, quote unquote, was all, business leaders and military guys. They were all aliens, for the most part, the high-ranking ones. And so anyway, the society message was this message of passivity, to be passive about stuff and just do what you're told. And the point is that in such an environment, it's you have to take charge of what you do in order to get to your art. Because nowhere in this message in the movie, and in America I can tell you it's the same thing, nowhere in America is or rarely, certainly not in the general media, is the idea, be a great artist, be a great person, be awesome, be empathetic. Now our president, our new one, he talks about empathy. He talks about some of this stuff. So I'm really happy. He's not a perfect president necessarily, who is, but some of his messages, we haven't heard this for a while. The idea of being a decent person and having empathy and actually caring for each other. This kind of thing. That's the kind of messages that come from him, which is kind of cool. But you don't really kind of get that as a matter of something that America as a country is proud of per se. He says that, but a lot of times America is touting its power and its money and its richness and the guns. Everybody has the guns and Second Amendment and freedom and all this stuff that, it ends up being like the priorities are not artistic. They're not these, putting aside the concept of freedom, which is an interesting concept in itself. Most of those concepts, chasing after money, having power, guns, all this stuff, big vehicles, big stuff, getting things quick. This is not synchronous with the things that empower an artist. And we should note, by the way, that society still has a certain respect and love for artists on a certain level, particularly commercial artists, knowing that people get joy out of it, right? So we know that there's some priority with art, at least from a commercial perspective. But if we're being honest, and I think we've all seen our version of this wherever, from our perspective, the art that gets most attention is money making for somebody. If it's making money for somebody, then it gets out there. If it's not making money for somebody, it's much harder for it to really get out there, right? So there's the reality. So within that reality, we as artists, individual artists, I mean all artists, including painters and dancers and the rest, as we dig through our self-expression, which the point of art, one of the points is to amplify and present and share that which makes us human and special. That what makes us more than the machines that we are, right? So our machines, we spend a lot of time doing our machine thing, feeding it and reproducing and building, all the stuff that's machine stuff that's, that's functional that we need to do, like our basic stuff, our work, as it were. That's a lot of what we do, but that's not what makes us special, right? So we know that that stuff's important, and if we do it really well or creatively, nice architecture or whatever, but for the most part, it's business. A nice creative meal that's well plated and blah, 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 but for the most part, we're feeding ourselves, right? So, and all the subsistence that we do is pretty basic and not particularly creative compared to the things that make us our emotional and spiritual and creative angles that are within us that make us, I guess that are, for lack of a better way to put it, that make us unique as a species. I mean, the level of art that we humans create, and the level of communication, the level of expression, the emotionality, that's a special, unique thing. And artists do it and we share it so that everybody else who's not necessarily doing it gets a piece of that. So they get their humanity enlightened. So a normal person's life, as we know, most people go to their job and they don't like it that much. So they go to their job and they hang out at the job and do what they're supposed to do. They do what they're told. And then they go home and do, like a lot of people go watch TV in America, watch a television. And again, this is all very passive and way below what I think human potential is. If you're spending 8 hours a day doing your it's kind of rude to say that, but if you're doing your functional thing that's really basic and not particularly high level for what we have that's in us, and then we spend another part of it recovering from that, right? So then what's left is maybe a couple of hours and, hang out, have a relationship, hopefully build some family, whatever it is, and have fun, hopefully. But that's kind of a bummer. So you're sleeping 8 hours, you're working 8 hours, you're spending at least 3-4 hours recovering from the work, and then you got a few hours left to do stuff. Well, okay. So that's fine, but probably not optimal. I'll just leave it there, right? So then we enter the artist, right? So we share what we have as best we can, and hopefully in fact, I can be sure of this, we uplift the world to a very significant extent. As those of us who are trying to do it, however, and this is what I want to share with you today, are just some perspectives about it. Those of us who are trying to do that, to have that role, to energize folks in a society which is basically not that. The society is do your thing, what you're told to do, and like we just described it. So that's not that environment. We have to flourish in that environment to get to the place where we can now share to energize that environment. So it's not fair, as they say. Well, of course, right? So a lot of things aren't fair, and this is one of them. So if it was fair might mean that artists and teachers, and I think teachers most importantly, but let's say artists for sure, as almost comparable to teachers, should be those characters that are revered, because we're the ones who energize humanity to its real potential, or to its potential of its potential. Whereas the more functional ones, people in America, it's probably less so now, but people they aspire to be lawyers and stuff, and business people chasing after money. And that's cool, but it's still, I think, in terms of human potential, that's not our highest human potential. I think our highest human potential has to do more with what pulls us together and makes us really strong. And as much as I appreciate my lawyer friends, I went to Harvard for Christ's sakes. I have a great bunch of lawyer friends, and they're awesome. But the actual profession is not one that is going to make people stronger, for the most part. It's more about protecting people and from the challenges that are out here, which is its own kind of discussion. But in terms, the whole idea of even medicine, it's more about the business of medicine is about how can we maximize the money flow, essentially. That's what the business of medicine is about. The art of medicine is how we make each other as healed as possible and strong as possible, but the business of it, which is the driver, at least in the States, it's a money thing. So here's the thing, is that understanding this environment, right, which is, I hope I'm not painting this too dark, because it's not really dark. It doesn't have to be dark. It could be dark if you look at it that way, but it's not productive to look at it as a dark thing. It's just, it is what it is. You know, and the fact is, it's a privilege because a lot of places don't even have all this stuff. You know, a lot of places don't have hospitals and stuff. You know, a lot of countries like don't have really good hospitals. Now we got to pay an arm and a leg for it, but at least we can get it, right? So, you know, I'm not really complaining. I know it's not optimal. That's really my thing. So we understand what that part of it is. How do we as artists optimize ourselves in a non-optimal environment? That's the question. So some of these things we know. So now, given what I just said, what do you guys think of some things? Just tell me what you think about the possibilities of how we optimize ourselves in a non-optimal environment. What should we do? What does anybody think?
Well, that's my personal approach. To be as to lead as much as possible healthy way of life, not to consume any kind of drugs, doing sports, doing your job honestly, being strict and honest with others.
Okay, those are some good things. So, hold on. Let me just repeat that first, because I'm also being mindful of the stream. So we're talking about some basic things that are not necessarily as basic as we want them to be, but they are basic, right? So, living as clean, eating, you know, a healthy lifestyle, some sport, trying to eat pretty healthy, honest with each other, honest work, right? And was one more?
Being straight and honest.
Being straight and honest, right?
With others and with your job.
With others and with your job. Okay, so that's a good starting point. I think a hand went up here. What do you think?
Yeah, we place this big part of the day, which is your work, with some work you're really inspired to do and you really like to do.
Try to find what you really like to do for work. Because we know, for the most part, if we're being honest, most of us will have to get a job for a while. I know I had to. I worked as a computer programmer for 12 years before I was able to be a full-time musician. So, and everybody, Ralph Moore worked at Tower Records, I remember that. There's a bunch of cats, and we all played in the street. That was a big thing for a lot of, that wasn't a job, but that was something we did to earn money. It was actually good practice, but there's always a money component to what you have to do. And if you can make that positive for yourself, that's huge. That's really huge. I tell all my students, same thing, to this day, if they're saying, Mr. Braden, what should I do? It's like, study something in college that you would really like to do as a job, because if you can have that to work with, that's going to be a tool to keep you cool. You know, if you have a job that you like to do, if you don't like it, it's going to suck. You're going to just be, your life is going to, it's not going to feel good. And that's what, so if you can find something. Good, okay, what else? Patrice?
So I noticed through the pandemic that a lot of people put actually themselves on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning of it, I didn't think much about it, but yet, as we came out of the pandemic, because those people became part of people's consciousness.
Yep.
Let's say promoters and everything.
Yeah.
So those names popping up here and there and around.
Right.
And then once the festival season started this year,
Yeah.
all those people that put themselves out there
Yeah.
actually got gigs. You know, people that didn't know got gigs.
Right.
And so the necessity of actually be present on the social media, like branding your name, and actually make sure that you know that you use the new medium for exposure.
Right.
You know, I think it's very essential. Like, you know, of course, we can talk about like only you try being a good musician, being a good human being.
Right.
You need to eat, and you need to actually be able to sell yourself.
Oh yeah, but they're all related, right? So I'll just summarize what you said, which is basically get a handle on how to promote yourself in general terms, particularly with social media, because it's a tool. And I have friends who are like, oh God, I hate social media. Well, you know what? It's a tool. It's like any tool. It can be used well, it can be used badly. And social media, we know, is not perfect by any stretch. And there's a whole money driving thing about it. But once you learn how it works, it can be a tool that can really help you. So yes, and I think in general, even a job is in a way a tool. If it's not necessarily your driving force, if it's a job you enjoy doing, then that helps. But in the end, it's a tool. So even if it's a job you don't like very much, but it pays well, if your mindset can be, and if you can organize it in such a way that it doesn't consume your time so much, which is not always easy to do, true, but it can be done, then it can be part of your toolkit on how to flourish out here. And this is really what I just want to, and in fact, we're kind of in a discussion about this. So part of it is me sharing some ideas, and part of it is you sharing ideas with each other. Not every idea works for everybody at any given time, which means that whatever comes out today is something just to check out, or not now, but maybe file it away, if not right for the moment, and see what works for you. But one thing's for sure, what everyone said so far is stuff that I've done at some point, with some success, to help my journey along the way. With the overall message being that you're going to need tools in your toolkit to make this step-by-step journey as optimal as possible. Remember, we're optimizing ourselves in a non-optimal environment. So we know the environment's not optimal, but it's got stuff in it that we can utilize and make us better, and we can tweak or study or interact to get to it.
It would also help us if we don't identify ourselves so much with our job, relationship status, and things like that, because we as humans, we are not that, and our true potential, it's not our relationship status, and it's not our job. And we as musicians, I mean, if I think about myself as a saxophone player, I link my worth with the way I play. And if I have a bad day playing the saxophone, then I start feeling bad about myself and feeling not good as a person, which is not like that. I'm not a bad person just because I have a bad day playing the saxophone. I mean, I'm still good, I'm still a good friend, I still try to be honest and with my friends, with my family, tell them that I love them, and things like that. I mean, it's just good to not identify so much with what we do as musicians, because we serve the music, yeah, and we do it from a place of love, which is the most important thing. The other stuff, I mean, it should come after that, I think.
Okay, that's great. Let me see how to summarize that. You want to wait?
Individualism, right? That you know how to take yourself out of the group that might stigmatize or whatever, that you can perceive yourself. Well, I think
it's different than that though. That's a little more. What she said. That's true too. That's a little bit different though, because what she's talking about is a personal thing. Has less to do with the group and more to do with your. With the personal identification.
But that's what I said. Individualism, right? That you.
Well, it's not. But that's different though, because what she's saying is that within yourself, so you're still, all her stuff is individual. What she's referring to. So individualism. Well, what's your name again? Marina. So what Marina is saying, what I'm hearing is, you, within your own world, on a given day, your relationships, either friendship or romantic relationship, can have a big effect on how you see yourself. And your saxophone playing, I'm the same. If my saxophone reads bad and I don't feel like my phrasing is all off and my stuff is all sloppy today, I feel like, even me, and I've been doing this for a long time, I'm like, I have to make an effort. There's a process of separating. That's just a bad day. Because tomorrow's going to be cool. Of course it's going to be cool. Now I know. But I feel the emotion of, frustration. So the idea then is your sense of self as an individual human, not individualism in the context of a group or anything like that, but just personally, emotionally. It's a mental health thing. That's what it boils down to. Who are you every day? Confidence in yourself that you're a loving person, a giving person, empathetic, confidence in knowing what that stuff is, identifying it, owning it, and then not letting it be too affected by external individual factors such as your saxophone playing, because we were artists, and if our stuff is off, it does affect us on some level, and then we have to then address that and deal with that. So it's a mental health thing. I mean, mental health is, God, we just went through, and we're still in it, obviously, 2 years almost of coronavirus, or really fully 2 years for sure, and more probably maybe. But, so that's had a big effect on mental health. One of the things I would like to just touch on is the concept of resilience, and how do we train our resilience, and what will it take for us to be more tough and adaptive? Because now we know, we learned, if we hadn't learned it before, and a lot of us probably have, we definitely learned now that stuff can get really rough out here. So we have to be ready for, be strong and not waste our time. Really be smart about prepping ourselves for the challenges that lie ahead. And part of it is this idea of personal awareness, self-awareness, and how individual personal things can distract you and sometimes knock you off your game a little bit. And that's normal to feel that, but if you learn to manage it, that's cool. Now, that kind of get it? Now, what I'm hearing from you is the idea of individualism with connection to a group. So here's a simple example, and we can dialogue a bit about it. I'm a black man. So in America, there's an underlying, you've heard about it because it's been in the news over the last few years, the idea of inequity in the systems of America, right? So that inequity creates a certain kind of stigma. It creates a weight that then you have to negotiate. So if I go into a certain situation, there's a good chance, let's say I'm going to a bank for a loan, there's a good chance that the system is already stacked against me. And that can weigh on me and slow me down. And so if I have a sense of self that separates from the fear that comes from the stigma, that sense of self can protect me from being too damaged by the situation. So that's what I'm hearing from you, something more like that. Or that's one example, but there are lots of them.
Right.
So there's then be, again, self-awareness. So you understand it's not about you. It's not that you're a bad person because this bank doesn't give you a loan. I mean, it might be possible, if you're financially irresponsible, then that's one thing, right? So I might spend a second, no time, but I might spend a second talking about that because that's super important. But understand that the systems, in some certain situations, if you have any kind of disability, right? So the idea that, if you're amputee or whatever, there's certain systems are just against you, or they're not for you. If they're not against you, they're not helping you, right? And so getting control of your sense of self in vis-a-vis, in fact, it's almost like our overall discussion, the idea that the systems are not optimized for you anyway, right? So if we have specific examples, so I'm black in America, the systems are not stacked for me. If I'm an amputee or something, then that might be another set of systems that aren't, stairs everywhere or whatever, that's not, like in America, they have all these laws about ramps and whatever with certain facilities to make it easier for people with disabilities to move around and therefore give them level the playing field a little bit for them, right? So that's a sense of something that I want to say that I'll hopefully get to, well, we'll definitely get to it because it's very important, about what you need to do to optimize yourself in a non-optimal situation. There's a very important word that will hopefully be a part of this. I'm hoping someone will say it. They haven't said it yet. We've had good comments, but we haven't come up with this very important word that reflects what I hope will be one of the key things to help us optimize ourselves in a non-optimal situation, right? So we understand that systems are what they are, and mental health and how you control yourself vis-a-vis these systems is kind of the key. If you say, oh God, the world's against me, and play the victim, now sometimes you are the victim, so I'm not saying that being a victim is necessarily something to be judged, but you can ascribe or you can respond to situations by having a victim mentality of everything's against me and I can't do anything about it, or you can be creative and proactive and figure it out. And not every situation is figure outable, but most are, I would say. So that's its own kind of a mental health thing. And so your mental, physical health are so closely related to understanding what's around you and learning how to deal with it. But now what I want to get you to is this very important, there's at least one more, and in fact I imagine that you guys are thinking of other things I haven't thought of, which is why I asked you, because it happens every time. But there's one I'm looking for. But that said, What else can we do that someone would like to share that you think we can do to optimize ourselves in a non-optimal situation? What do you think?
I want to be thorough.
Thoroughness. Well, okay, so we can talk about that for a hot second. Thoroughness, and I'll bridge that to some other ones. So what, you want to say what you mean by thorough? You want to just articulate?
I mean by thorough, like either being in music or whatever other spectrum, but let's say music, that you know how thorough you're going to either a song, I mean, whatever you're studying on,
Yeah.
but also to know, which is in this thoroughness, the limits when you know you have to either move on or have to do something with it, not just be thorough and go in it and never offer anybody to itself, right? So that what you work on, you be thorough, but then you also realize here's where it ends and here's where I'm trying to give myself out to others so that I can, well, establish some content which I want as a musician, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right. So the idea of going deep enough to understand deep enough into what your goals are to understand your boundaries, and then the ability and the skill to work through that and know when to stop. So that's thoroughness, but it also overlaps with discipline, the very important D word. So discipline and thoroughness to me overlap because.
I mean, you need honesty as well, right? That you're honest with yourself, what you're doing with this.
So honesty also came up from you as well. So honesty, and again, honesty with oneself, right? So understanding your limitations and self-analysis. All these overlap, right? So self-awareness, self-analysis. In other words, checking yourself out and being honest with what's going on. Thoroughness to work through it, and a discipline to be consistent about it. And along with discipline goes the very important H word. What's the H word that goes with discipline? H. What begins with H? That's the partner of discipline. That's one. What's the other one? Humility. Yes, that's another one. Humility is huge, actually. Honor.
Harmony.
Harmony. Oh, these are great ones. Okay, H words. So harmony. Harmony overlaps. Let's keep harmony right here. Put harmony right there. We're gonna come back to harmony. Hope. And a hope. Put hope right under it. Hope is huge. Hope. Wow, and huge for that matter. Okay, wait. Honor. Honor's good. Hope. Humility. Honesty. There's one more. Let's think practical, not philosophical. Think practical. That goes with discipline. What's the practical thing that discipline leads to? Habits. The H words.
He said happiness.
Oh, happiness. Well, that's another one. Put that one right there. Hope, happiness, and harmony. Hunger. Actually, hunger. Hunger is great. Yeah. Put that under happiness. Has been. No, that's you. No, that's you and me. Okay, so habits was what I'm getting to. Habits that's a practical thing. Habits are the key to getting stuff done. You know why? Because habits determine what you actually do day to day, like 80%, if not 90%. Like that, because what happens is, when you're discipline requires a certain amount of energy that is hard to maintain over a long period of time. To be disciplined. We're disciplined to practice 3 hours a day, but what really happens is, we're disciplined for the first few times, then it becomes a habit. So the discipline is not necessary anymore because now it's a habit to put in your shedding time. It's a habit to get your butt to the gym. I can't even wake up without my body wanting to I'm almost being dragged to the gym by the habit of just it becomes a program almost. So if you get control of your habits, you will really get control of getting things done. And thoroughness, discipline, ultimately, the whole point of those is to get stuff done. And the point of getting stuff done is to be able to focus on those things that will optimize you in a non-optimal world, right? So that's the kind of the beginnings of the functional aspect of this idea that we want to figure out how to optimize ourselves. Getting a hold of thoroughness, overlapping with discipline, and then programming our habits accordingly. A habit might be to go to Starbucks and buy coffee. But if you analyze that habit, Starbucks in America, coffee, I don't go, so I don't really know, but it's like $3 or $4. It's very expensive. So if you just do arithmetic, not even math, just arithmetic, you do coffee 5 days a week at Starbucks, and it's $4 essentially with tax or whatever, latte with some fancy names and some fancy moniker that goes with it, like crimson spice, chai latte with creamy whatever, right? So then that's 4 times 5 for the week, $20. So that's 4 weeks in a month, so that's $80. And at the end of a year, 8 times 12, 96. 900, not 8 times 12, 80 times 12, $960. That's $1,000 almost for the year. So if you're 18 and you save $1,000 a year until you retire, just that money that you spend on Starbucks for 5 days a week, that's close to the math. Let's see if I can figure. Let's just do let's just do the brute force of it. So $1,000 a year for 40 years, that's $40,000. But if you invest that money, right? So then it becomes compound interest. So then if it's 40 years, you got $1,000. Let's say we start with $1,000 at age 18, and we're going to 50. That's 40 years. 60 is 50 years. You got 50 years, right? So it's something called the Rule of 72. The Rule of 72 says that it allows you to calculate interest, compounding, and give you a ballpark figure of what that can lead to. So the Rule of 72 says if you divide the interest rate into 72, the number you get out of that is the number of years it takes your investment to double if you just put the investment in. So for example, if we say, okay, I'm going to get 7% interest on this, which stock market's been doing better than that for the most part, 7% every year. If you didn't know that, you should learn about that, actually. I think it's very important, and I'll see if I have time to do a 2-minute or 3-minute financial primer for you, but 7% you can get pretty likely, let's say, for the most part. So then, in 10 years, $1,000 becomes $2,000 because you divide 7% into 72, you get 10. And the number you get, that's how many years it takes your money to double with compound interest. So from the first 10 years, your 1,000 becomes 2,000. Then the next 10 years, your 2,000 becomes 4,000. That's 20 years. At 30 years, 8,000, 40 years, 16,000, and 50 years, 32,000. That's the first 1,000 without adding any other money. All you need to do is get the 7%. Put it in a fund that mimics the S&P 500, which has been doing better than 7% for the last 40, 50 years, whatever, on average. And you got, in 50 years, you got 64 grand. Is that what I said? 64 or is it 32? Let's see. 32. That's 32. You got 32 grand, thank you. You got 32 grand. That's based on $1,000 not doing any other work. Think about that. The $1,000 in the 1 year of pumpkin spice crimson lattes that you skipped has given you 32 grand in retirement. That's just $1,000. If it's 10 grand, it's 320K. If you put your 10,000 at age 18 and take it out at age 58, if you get 7%. If you get more, it's more. If it's less, it's less. Who knows what it's going to be? But going by my experience, because I did it. I did it, and I have it. So I know it works, because I did it. I can tell you from personal experience, this stuff actually works. So I have $3,000 from my, no. But I took early money and it has invested over decades, and it's turned into real money. So I'm not rich, but I do have real money from investing. And I skipped the Bitcoins. Don't get me started on Bitcoin. Don't get me started.
I made a shitload of money in Bitcoin.
I made a bitload of money in coin. Some people make a poop load of money gambling too. Just saying. Okay. Just saying.
What about the discipline?
Exactly. But here's the thing, right? So my habit is buying coffee. If I change my habit to not buying the coffee, I get a result. But you buy the coffee without thinking about it. You go to Starbucks without thinking about it. That's my point, right? That's the financial point is a big point. So, and there's a bunch of basic personal finance things. Like I say, I make it the 2-minute quick version, but that example is something that most young people are not hip to at all. I know I wasn't until later. So I didn't get it at 18. I started it in my 20s and got it going. If I started at 18, I would have had one more 10 years. So the amount that I came up with would have been doubled again. If I started at 28 rather than 18, I lost half my 32,000. I'm only at 16,000. If I started 10 years earlier with that $1,000, just that $1,000, 10 years earlier, where a lot of you guys are in the 18 zone, That's double at retirement age. So starting early is the key. That's why I mention it. So if I just say to you, hey, go research personal finance and investing, that's pretty much all I have time to say to you right now. But I can tell you from personal experience, it means freedom from a perspective of trying to optimize yourself in a non-optimal world, getting your money together. Okay, question?
Yeah, but don't you think that there's a little bit more nuance to this?
Are you kidding? There's a ton of more nuance. I could spend hours.
It's nice to think about it this way. It's like, okay, if I don't drink 5 coffees for €4 a week for a year, I'm gonna be able to save up like almost 1K. Like, I think you gotta start with some money first to actually.
Hold on. First off, let me address that in a second. It's a very extremely important, valid point that you're making.
I don't know, because like, I'm sure you have experience with this. I'm just.
Are you kidding?
About it this way.
That's the point. I have experience. So I'll get to you, because Katerina, your point is totally valid question. So give me a second to just wrap up the discipline habit thing. The whole point of the discipline habit thing is, if you realize that your habits affect everything, then gaining control of them is a key, one of your keys. So practice, working out, when you call your mom, whatever. Anything is, so many things are driven by habit. If you get a conscious, proactive grip on your habits, that's really one of the keys. And our overall framework, by the way, is our New York point of view. So all the stuff I learned in New York, right, from being there and having to put the stuff to work, surviving in New York City, right? So then I could go and deal with that saxophone and ultimately optimize myself in what was definitely a non-optimal situation from so many perspectives, even though it was optimal with the clubs and with the cats and all that. The money thing and the health thing and the social interaction thing, the promotion thing, all that stuff was all stuff I had to kind of decode. And my own habits were all part of that. So when I got my various habits together, it made and certain habits I still struggle with, things that aren't optimal. We all have our versions of things that we're trying to get better at. But what I want to say to you is if you get control of people say, oh, I don't have enough discipline. Well, you don't need that much discipline. What you need is to target your discipline in the right way to build the right habits. That's what I want to say to you about that. That make sense? There's a lot written about this. The Power of Habit, Atomic Habits, my man, right? James Clear, that's my man. There's a bunch of great books about habits, so you can scope that out. Now, getting back to the nuance of investing. So what I share with you about the investing thing, and it's worth a couple minutes on this, because if you figure this out for yourself, your personal finance, the only reason to get money, the only reason, in my opinion, is for freedom, relatively freedom. Now, I should just real quickly talk about freedom. Freedom is relative. Freedom only means something within a system, as a practical matter. I have had a lot of discussions with people in the States. It's all about freedom to carry my guns and freedom to blah, 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 blah. It's like, freedom is irrelevant in a way, because you're not really free. If you want to be really free, you unplug from the grid and go in the middle of the country where you can survive through the winters and whatnot. No stores, go chase down your own water, chase down your own. If you want to get rid of infrastructure, that's freedom. Real freedom, real freedom is like unplug from all the infrastructure and do your own thing. Cool.
Even that's relative.
Even that's relative.
You're not free from having to hunt for food.
You're not free from having. That's the irony, is that now you're free, but you're not free. So now, if you go into a situation like the States, where you're free, but you're not free to run a red light with your car, because if you run a red light with your car, guess what's going to happen?
I'm going to protest.
I'm just saying. Somebody will protest you for running that red light. That's the best of the possibilities. There's a lot of bad things that can happen if you decide you want to be so free that you want to run red lights. You dig what I mean? There's always boundaries. So there's no real freedom. So people who come to be talking about, free and rights, use your brain, man. Freedom only works in context. With the word I want to say to you, by the way, the other big word that no one said yet, I'm sure you would have got to it, is community. That is the real key. All the stuff I said is more individual oriented, but the key to everything, the real key, is community. 1 + 1 is 4. You've heard me say this before, some of you. 1 + 1 is 4. That's the key to everything. Me and Steve Altenberg, Steve is cool, I'm cool, but when we're together, it goes up here. Some of you have seen it.
Cold.
What?
When we're together, we're cold.
We're cold, baby. You hear it, right? As soon as we interact, the thing gets into. That's it, right? So you find that other one, and that other one, and that other one, and it goes, not 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is like 7. And 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is like 20. That's the key. But you got to pick the right ones, because 1 plus 1 can also be 0, or -2, or something. If it's the wrong one, and we all know what that is. So, that's community. Find the right ones. And that's the key to everything. Your team is that's your life. Okay? That's just, anything you need is not individual. Individuals, yeah, you maximize, but in the end, you got to find people to hook up with that you reinforce each other, and we're wired for this. Humans are wired for this. Now, getting to Katarina's point, that's my most important point of all is that, but you know this already. I just want to put I want to just say it to you because, again, my personal experience, community, my teammates, my bandmates, my family, you got to figure that out and make it great as best you can, and it's not easy. No, no guarantees. Like 1 plus 1 can be -5. So you really do have to figure that part of it out. But if you figure it out, it will really help you. Now, the financial example, of course it's an oversimplistic example, but I can tell you that the general concept, what I was really sharing with you is, number one, discipline and a financial plan helps, and actually helps a lot. Speaking as a guy who's nearing retirement, technically, and who has money because of using these tactics. Now, I didn't stop drinking coffee and $10,000, and it's not that. This is a metaphor in a way. So in other words, we're talking about a concept. The idea is, number one, goal. Number two, plan. Number three, and this is general terms. There's a ton of, books upon books upon books, podcasts upon podcasts, TED Talks, all of it. There's tons of detail of this stuff. This is not rocket science. But check this out. None of it is in schools. None of it is in schools in America. They don't teach it. This is arguably the most important thing I did to flourish in a non-optimal situation is research my money, research my health. All happened outside of school because school wasn't doing it. And that's the systems. That's the non-optimal. It just is what it is. So the concept is goal. But before that, the realization, and that's really the theme of my talk today, the realization that you're in a non-optimal environment. You know that if you trust the system to just take care of you financially and you don't proactively deal with it with some clear concepts, it's not going to work. You're in trouble. If you deal with it, goal, plan. The plan is take my $1,000, invest it XYZ, and then understand, monitor, and make sure that the thing is following. Another part two of the plan is you put a few bucks in every week or every month or every whatever, which is what I did. So you start with an X amount, and then the plan is you put X amount, and then you can with arithmetic you can calculate. That's the online tools. So just type in the starting amount, the amount every month, and the interest rate, and it'll tell you what's going on year after year. It'll give you a chart. Tons of tools for this. But the real point, Katarina, is tools and concept, not the simple example. The simple example is just an example. Your mileage may vary. If it's not coffee, it's shoes. If it's not shoes, it's saxophone reeds. If it's not saxophone reeds, it's hair gel. If it's not hair gel, it's whatever. You look at everything. All of us waste a little bit of money. That's the thing. Somewhere. Me too. Even now. I probably spend more than I should for, I don't know, whatever. There's some things I just, not careful about. Now at this point in my life, I don't have to worry too much about it. When I was a kid, if I was just a little more mindful, I'm not saying don't do anything. Take all your extra money, sit in your house, and don't buy any shoes for yourself or coffee for yourself, and just put all your money in this thing. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that is an example of a tactic or a strategy, shall we say, that if when implemented with the right mindset, will give you a result of a build of money that will then lead to relative freedom. And the freedom is that financial freedom is, freedom and also control. Because we've all been broke before. I have. All of us have probably experienced it. Maybe some of us are now. It's not much fun, particularly in, again, the environment. If we're being real about it, the environment is not optimized for people who don't have money. It's just not. You can have moralities all you want about it, but again, it's not about morals, it's about reality and practicality. You got to put food on the table and eat. Someone said that. So if your money is tight and you don't know how to deal with that, you're going to be in trouble.
Can
Period.
I say something there, Don?
Sure.
I think going to your point, a good place to start when you're young and you have no money is just monitor your no money. So when I was 22, out of college, I had money in college, you know, it was paid for, and, you know, my parents paid it, and this and that and the other. And then I was in the real world, 22, living in Boston, and it came time to do my taxes for the first time. And I was doing it, and I was like, am I ahead from last year, behind? I have no idea. Everything is like cash, playing on the street, you know, it's like, and so I bought myself a calendar. I put a line down the middle of it, you know, where you see the whole week on 2 pages or something like that. Put a line down the middle. Money spent, money in, every day.
Yeah.
Oh, I gave 30 cents to the beggar on the street. Oh, you know, really, that minimal. And or I made 18.13 playing on the street. And then the point is that I could see, oh, this is what I'm doing. And from there, I could start to make choices.
Of course. I mean, I understand what you were
Yeah.
talking about. Of course, I
You
understand
gotta start
that you're
somewhere.
talking with like some certain nuance already behind it, because of course nothing is that simple. And I'm sure that like you were speaking more in terms of like example or a metaphor, whatever you were
But yes,
talking
if you
about.
have no money, you
Yeah,
can't,
because
if
if
you
you're
don't even have money to go to
living paycheck to
Starbucks,
paycheck,
that's not gonna help you,
Yeah.
but it's just the concept. And I was just trying to make the point that if you don't know where you stand and how much money you have, before you can put a plan into action, that's a good first step. Just try to see, am I spending more than I'm making? Am I, you know, how much am I spending? What am I spending it on? And because, you know, you don't remember, you know.
You don't remember. And again, going back to the point of stuff not being as cool, you don't think about this. Our society doesn't have us in the mindset of tracking, even though money is like arguably in society one of the most important things, for better or for worse. Like, we don't love it, but it is what it is. Yet we have no tools. We have no tools. So we're missing this concept. So you created it.
Yeah.
And again, it wasn't rocket science, it's common sense. Takes a sheet of paper, a calendar, just a log, and say, okay, what do I have? What am I spending? Has anyone ever done that? Has anyone ever written down everything they spend for a couple of days? Some of you, not many, but some.
Years.
3 months now.
3 months, okay. So if you're tracking what's going on, then you got a handle on what you have. You have knowledge.
Then you can make choices.
Then you can start to make choices. You can say, okay, now, and this is where the goal part comes in. So Steve put something before my goal. He put something in analysis. Look inside, reflect, check it out. Then you can say, okay, now I have something, an understanding of where I am. What can I do to achieve ABC goal? Now, what I gave you was a small amount of money that could turn into a big amount of money over time. Just one simple example. And if you look at what you have and just make small adjustments, most of us can find something to put away. And that mindset is hard because it is, oh God, I can't figure out. But it's a habit. We go back to the H word. If you have a habit of putting $5 away, just put $5 in a pan, in a bottle or something, whatever. Put some coins build a habit for yourself to put something away in some kind of, whatever it takes. You've got tools that'll take a little money out of your bank account. Like there's these accounts that'll literally take $5 a week, or $5 a month for that matter. It'll take any amount that you program. You won't even miss it in many cases. Particularly if you do some analysis and know, okay, I can probably find $5 a month or $10 a month or whatever. And most of us can find a decent amount just to start. Because $10 a month is still $120 a year.
Let's say you have a gig that pays $30. And you think, it's only $30. I can't take $5 out of that. Well, if nobody called you for that gig, you probably would still make it to the end of your life.
Most likely you would, absolutely. So it's all so the habits part of it, and then there's also a mindset part of it. And what he's talking about is that. So if you adjust a little, like if you say, so we know it takes money to make money. We know that's true. But if you say to yourself, well, I don't have money, you're programming yourself to not have money. So if you program yourself to say, I have very little, but I'm going to save what I can out of what I have, I'm going to make a plan, I'm going to figure this out. If your mindset is that much more likely that you can figure something out and build a habit based on that mindset. Because what you say, words and what you then thoughts, key to everything. Besides community, which is really the key. And the right community would help you with this part of it anyway. Because you can tell your buddy, hey Steve, let's can we just talk about this? What do you do? Now he just did it basically without even because that's us. We riff off each other all the time. That's 1 + 1 is 10.
You should hear this one record.
That is one record.
I was riffing on it.
But this is the point, right? So if you're not sure what to do, as so many of us are about so many things, then ask of your network. Hey, do you have any? They might say yes, or they might say no. What do you think? Oh, here's what I do. Oh, cool. We never talked about it because people don't talk about money, do they?
No.
They don't. It's like almost like a taboo. It's like, oh, especially Europeans. Oh my God, at least Americans. It's like we're kind of money people, so we talk about it at least a little bit. Not that we should talk about it as much as we do, because Americans are, oh God, Americans, oh money, oh my God, right? So, but the truth is, in America, it's like it's this thing to get and have because you can buy stuff with it, which to me is, if I'm being honest, is stupid. Quite frankly, I don't really like that. I think the idea of understanding money's function to help us optimize ourselves and give us some freedom and control, that to me makes way more sense in a financially driven society. Not just to have stuff. I like to have nice stuff, but that's not a priority. That's not a goal. That's something if every once in a while I might say, okay, I want something, but it's not about my life. It's not about accumulating stuff. But in America, unfortunately, the culture is kind of like that. The people that we aspire to have a lot of stuff. And people brag about having something from some designer and a bag that costs $5,000 or a car that costs $700,000 or whatever. People brag about that.
You guys should be thankful that you have something artistic that you have passion about, because usually the people that get caught up in that trap, not exclusively, but they get caught up in the stuff trap, are people that don't have an outlet for creative exploration of the self. And so it's just about, okay, I go to my job, I make money, I need a new car, that's good. But we are we can be thankful that we have something. Maybe it doesn't bring as much money, but it makes us realize that stuff is not important.
It's not the priority. What's our time? Oh, we better wrap up. Anyway, so I hope we covered enough that of course I have hours more of stuff to share with you, but at the very least, hopefully some ideas that'll help you come up with some look at yourselves and find some ideas and tools and tactics that'll help you to make yourselves a little stronger and help your community be stronger so that we all win. That's really what the goal is. Does that make sense? All right, we'll call it a day.